everyone, and welcome to Tal Talks. We have a really special show for you today. I am actually interviewing one of the vendors that we are going to be having all week long, showing the wares that this person sells. This is Ian Struckhoff from the Fourth Place. How are you?
I'm really good, actually. Taking a little time off from my lazy Sunday Civilization game to hang out, which is nice.
I gotta watch your Civilization game now because he streams it, and it sounds like it would be interesting.
Yeah, it's a chance for members to hang out, and we play co-op so that any members can join and be on the same team, so we don't have to worry about difficulty levels or whether some of us are going to trounce each other.
Yeah,
so it ends up being just very. I call it lazy Sunday Civilization because it's laid back, it's relaxed. It's not
cutthroat.
Yeah, no, yeah, not fast paced, not cutthroat. It's the kind of gamer I am, I guess.
So Ian is awesome, and I literally messaged him 5 seconds ago and got him to come on here to talk to me 30 seconds ago, because the other person I was supposed to be interviewing left me high and dry today. It's really sad. So I have some questions for you about all of the cool stuff that you do. First off, I was wondering if you could tell people specifically about your shop, The Fourth Place, what you sell, what kind of things that you do with that.
Yeah, so the business, The Fourth Place, is all about, I say, creating spaces where geeks feel at home and everyone can play. That started out as an events business, working towards sort of a brick and mortar space. The ultimate idea is to take a place that combines your local comic shop and local game shop with that convention feel, only not once a year, so you can just go hang out whenever you want. But that's not really an option right now. I won't delve too much into that. It's kind of a downer. But what that meant was that when all this stuff started happening, I really transitioned to a combination of online sales and online membership. And the main thing I make, there's really two. I make a lot of things because I really like to try different stuff. But the shop sells original stickers and T-shirts and stuff that I design. And the membership, the most popular one is, let's see if it can not disappear here, is the Sticker Club. So I design stickers for tabletop gamers, RPG players, board gamers, and just sort of geek culture stuff in general. Theory being that now's the time when we don't get a lot of chances to connect with each other. We're not going to Ren fairs. We're not going to cons. And having the stickers and T-shirts means that when people do see you, they know that you're into the same stuff. So it's kind of about connecting. Plus, it's a chance just to kind of show off geek pride. So the stickers are a big part of it. I also sell, or we have memberships, both through Patreon and directly subscribing to the stickers. So members don't just get the stickers, they get everything I make that's digital, no matter what level of membership. And the big thing that I make for download is I write original D&D source books. So I'm developing a setting called The Four Worlds. We do a podcast in The Four Worlds on Saturdays. Not a podcast, a live actual play show on Twitch, I should say. And so the shop is all about stickers, pins, T-shirts, original designs for geek and gamer stuff. But the main way that people get it is by becoming members and getting to be part of the Discord and to get all the digital content as well. So I try not to make it just a shopping experience.
It's more of a community sort of thing. Yeah. That's awesome.
So I'm translating what's the shop, what's the community, because it all
it's all kind of connected.
Yeah.
So this is perfect for our theme this month, which is fun and games, all fun and games January. We have tons of things that are related to tabletop, things that you can do at home with your family and friends. And what's really great is that now people are playing a lot of games online, not just video games, but they're playing tabletop games together using Zoom or using some other way to talk to each other like Twitch. And that's really exciting. Actually, this was the first time we decided to do a game. We were playing a new tabletop game, and we did some videos of it, which was pretty fun. Yeah. So you mentioned that you were maybe going to get an actual location at some point. Do you know what area, like where around? Just so
I'm not sure. I'm from New England, so I lived in the Boston area for most of the last 15 years. Most of my LARP friends and Rennie friends are in that area. I'm actually, well, it looks like I'm at Galaxy's Edge right now. I'm actually in Montana for the winter.
Oh, wow.
So I've been all over in the last couple of years. So there's a good chance that the first location will be wherever there is a shop for sale that, could be transformed and expanded that way.
Well, we're going to hope it's in New England and Massachusetts.
Yeah,
for,
there's a non-zero chance because I know that area really well. College towns are the perfect places for
yeah.
shops. I think of it more as a space.
Yeah.
That's really part of the idea is, I guess I'll just share this thought that really led to the fourth place. The good board game shops, the good comic shops, they're the ones, and the ones that survived sort of the world, the e-commerce
and Magic, lots of Magic card players.
Yep. All those places, the ones that survived and the ones that are good, they weren't just shops. They were places where you'd want to hang out.
Yeah.
We've got the internet to shop, and I know that you don't compete with the internet. Am I going to go take 30% off on Amazon, or am I going to pay full price at a shop?
That's not why you go there. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't go there for the price. And so the idea is, let's create, I'm not the only one. I miss Ren fairs. I miss conventions like PAX East, Boston Comic Con every year. And you'd go and you'd be really burned out at the end of the weekend. And then you'd wish you could just do it next weekend, but smaller.
Yeah.
And so the idea of the shop is to have a place where you go maybe on a Tuesday night, maybe on a weekend, and there are games to be played. There are tables where you can set up and find a group to play an RPG with. There are, trivia nights. There are events and stuff to do together. Not as intense as a con, but not as rare either.
Yeah. I love going to PAX to play board games with people, just to get in those big tables. Yeah. And that's what a lot of people do there. But it's so big and there's so many people that it can get really uncomfortable just being stuffed in a huge crowd like that. So this kind of environment, you can go to a smaller store and kind of see some people that you might have seen before and familiar faces, and be able to, play games with people that you can relate to, which is really
finding people who are like us. That's really the goal. Before the pandemic, I was running local board game nights, kind of just for fun and to spread the word, kind of pop-ups. And I never got to play a game. And I realized at the end of the night, I was still super thrilled. And it was because I was bringing people together.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't get to play. I had to make sure that everyone was happy and there were enough drinks on the drinks table and all that host stuff. But then I'd watch, like, at the end of the night, people are swapping Facebook info, making friends, they're discovering games from each other. And I realized that, like, that building community part is the most fulfilling part of doing this. So that's sort of where
So is that what made you decide to start this in the first place?
Yeah, that idea, definitely, and the idea of creating spaces, but it really clicked and I really became my passion when I did it a few times and people were making friends and I helped. It's just like, it's that basic, on a human level, it's not about games. And most of the games we play aren't about games. It's about connecting with people. You find people who are into the same stuff and you can relax and be yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really cool. So you started this business all on your own. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are, they're looking to do something new, especially with everything that's happened, and they're at home and they're thinking about maybe starting a business. Do you have any advice for people who maybe are just starting out?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I always start with, and I was actually an executive, so I was mentoring people in the real world before I started doing this. And my biggest piece of advice in any world, whether it's starting your own business or finding your path in a career, is the phrase talent is passion applied. If you really love something, you're going to spend more time and energy on it and you're going to get good at it. And so finding that thing that you're passionate enough about, that you want to spend a lot of time on it and get better at it and devote your life to it. Sometimes it'll end up feeling like work. People say do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. The truth is, do what you love and your hobby will start to feel like work. So make sure it's something you really love doing is the first piece of advice. And don't be afraid to reinvent yourself. As the fourth place, I was selling upgraded board games. And then I was running events. And actually right before the pandemic, what really started to work was letting restaurants hire me to run their board game nights.
Oh, that's awesome.
You kind of empty on Tuesday, have this guy come with a bunch of games and, pay him a little bit of money to be there. And you might get some more people at the tables and he might sell some games,
That's really cool.
And I had 3 good events lined up. I had restaurants announcing their weekly game night run by me. Mm-hmm. And then lockdown happened in LA County, a little bit ahead of the rest of the world. So, and I had to reinvent myself again. And at first that was really scary, but I guess my advice is you know what you love, but there's different pieces of it. So don't be afraid if one product you try to sell or one service you try to sell doesn't work. Like there's another idea adjacent to that. Keep trying things. If you're passionate about it, it gives you a chance to make mistakes and learn from them, but it also is a reminder that there's not just one thing you can be doing. You know, that like that first failure doesn't mean now we stop. It means now we try something new.
I wonder if we've been trying to figure out a good way to like run tabletops and board games at the Ren Fair. When we do an After Darks portion where it's 18 plus, and there are people that want to, drink and go to the shows and things like that. But there's other people that just kind of want to have more quiet fun. And I think that we do have, since we can be open really late, or we have a camp that we can be open really late at our camp and have people playing games all night. Mm-hmm. We've been trying to figure out if there was a good way to integrate board games, because it's a lot of this people that go to Ren Fairs also like playing D&D and a lot of tabletops.
Yeah.
So I'll have to talk to you and see if
I think I could see one of the crossover points for me. I'm a LARPer. I've played in one of the old New England LARPs.
So for those of you who don't know, LARPing is live action role-playing games.
Yeah. And for me, my Ren Fair friends, the reason we have costumes is because every other weekend we're wearing them, fighting goblins or whatever out at a Boy Scout camp or something.
Yeah, and we have a LARP and we have a Boy Scout camp, and that's where we do the night hours at our Ren Fair is at the Boy Scout camp.
Yeah, and we do the game that I'm in has quest events, tournament events, and feast events as the main formats, and we started just bringing board games that were appropriate to the feast events. And so you're eating and you're getting your That's 7 perfect. Removes of food.
Yeah.
And you're wearing your costume. And the thing that we found really made it help is just bring the ones that fit. Don't bring the sci-fi games, bring the fantasy games. And then, you can sort of keep it in the setting.
Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't love, getting food while you're playing? I would love having food delivered to me, like while I'm playing any game.
Yeah. A lot of people joke that in the LARP that I played in that most characters are either tournament characters or quest characters. And I was sort of famous for having one of the few characters that was optimized for feasting. I used to say. So.
Feast character?
Yeah,
really like a hobbit?
I play a wizard who thinks that his magic is powered by how much he eats. And
no.
Anything worth doing is worth overdoing. So, you bring games and it gives you something to talk over, just like it does in real life.
Yeah. So speaking of tabletops, I'm wondering, what was your first tabletop that you ever played? And then what would be some of your favorite ones that you've played?
I'm sure my first games were all sort of mainstream, Boggle, Monopoly, which I now realize is an anti-game.
My gosh. Yeah.
I'm trying to think when I first got into hobby board gaming. What were I think I was one of those people who went from like the real gradual from Monopoly and Sorry and Boggle.
All those ones and I hate those. I hate most of those kind of games because they're just luck. Like you just roll dice. Yeah. And it's whatever you happen to land on. Like there's some decision making, like with Monopoly, there's some cutthroat, mean decision making, but a lot of them, like Sorry, is literally just rolling, and it's just
and games for kids and families. If there's too much skill, then the kids don't have any fun. So I think that's where that came from.
But now,
and then so I got from there to like Axis and Allies and Risk, which were like strategy games, but they sold them at Toys R Us and Kmart. And that
Risk is like the family destroyer or the friend destroyer.
But that got me into bigger or more sort of. I guess people say the games I play are Ameritrash. I like themed games more than abstract. But so I got into all around the same time. Got into Catan.
Yeah.
Got into whatever games my friends had. Small World was one of the ones that we really started playing a lot. So play on a map feels like fantasy. That's usually what gets me into the games.
Yeah.
And then I just go ahead.
For me, I got really into any ones that I could do co-op with friends where we're not against each other.
That's become really big for me too.
Yeah.
I mentioned that my Civ game is co-op on purpose.
Yeah.
Really on purpose. And for me, I mostly buy board games now that I'm looking at. Do I like the theme?
Yep.
Can I play it with the number of players I'm actually going to have available?
Yep.
And especially if it's got a co-op mode. The first incarnation of the Fourth Place as an online shop was all about selling what we called game night ready upgraded board games. Still sell them, although they're on hold because I'm traveling and it's just, I don't want to delay how long it takes people to get their games. But what I would do is take those board games and I would upgrade them. And that included selling a game night in a box, game night in a bag, which was
that's awesome.
Crowdfunding things for this business. And to come up with a game night in a box, I had to think of 7 games that cover like all the different genres, all the different levels of like complexity. And so one of the things I really fought for was a lot of games that could be played co-op because not everybody is competitive. I'm
not.
One of the jokes behind the name The Fourth Place, it's literally a quadruple meaning on purpose, is that I'm the kind of gamer who'd rather get fourth place than not play. The dumbest of all the 4 meanings, but right. I always say
now I have to know what the other meanings are.
I could do it, but first, so the idea is that how do I say this? I've always been the kind of gamer who defines himself as a gamer based on enthusiasm, not skill. Right? I just want to play. I don't expect to win. And so the meaning is the fourth place. Let's see if I can remember. So one is a reference to Jack Kirby's Fourth World.
Okay.
Because I knew that comics was going to be part of it because I wrote comics and I grew up on comics. And so that's part of what I think geek culture is centered around. One of them is the concept of the 4 worlds in older sort of like fairy tales, like the Scottish fairy tale ballads. There's this theme of there are 4 worlds. There's the world, Earth. There's heaven, there's hell, and there's fairy. And so the 4th world is also the fairy realm, which is the kind of the stories and the mythology and the fantasy that I'm most into. One is again getting 4th.
No, our Ren Fair is fairy themed, right?
In fact, and the book I'm writing right now is called The Fairy Host, and it's taking more like a fairy tale version of fairies and bringing it into a deep setting so that it sort of has more of that nature and abstraction and dreams and so
we haven't had more conversations because I wrote a fairy book for young adult fantasy based on fairy folklore that's very dark and creepy, and then I do comics too, and I do fairy comics.
Awesome. I never got fairies into my comics. I was writing urban fantasy.
Urban fantasy is one of my favorite genres, so I have to check out your stuff. I really do.
In fact, just to bring this around too, on the 4th place, one of the things I do is I like to have bonus content. So the core digital content is the game books. Volume 3, The Fairy Host, is coming out as soon as I finish it, but probably January or February. It's already it's already bigger than the first 2 volumes combined. Because when I started thinking about ideas for fairies, I was like, okay, so wizards, I have a few ideas. I'm really into wizards. And then I did demigods and sort of inspired by the heroes of, sort of legend. And then I started writing the thing about fairies and I was like, oh, there's nowhere to stop.
Fairies, everything's a fairy. You keep going forever. Yeah. There's so much.
The Wizard of Legend has a race, 2 different subclass options, and a background for D&D to play like a Gandalf or a Merlin wizard, like a larger than life wizard, in a way to make that work. Not just someone who studied. And that's cool, right? You get a new background, a couple of new subclasses. In the second one, it was heroic demigods, and it's 1 D&D race with I think 11 sub races, which was getting bigger. But now I've already written 7 unique classes. 7 unique races. Plus there are a half a dozen sub races to be fey touched characters, and then I'm writing those and I'm realizing, here's a really easy way to do a wizard subclass, so that's in there, and it won't stop growing. I had to finish the notes and lock down the content recently and just start writing it because there's so many possibilities in that world.
So we have three. What's the fourth place?
So I actually can't remember. At one point, I think I did decide that there were 4, but those are the 3 main ones. I think I say there are 4 partly because then there are 4. But
I bet you'll come up with it afterwards. You'll be like, oh, wait, it was this.
Yeah, it'll be too late. That's what I get for not prepping, but I guess I didn't have time.
You didn't have time to prep. I just randomly messaged you.
And the whole idea of the four worlds is to take a D&D type world and just say, what if a fantasy world didn't have all these different things? What if it only had gods in the heavens, demons in the hells, fairies in the fairy realm, and the world itself, and the relationship between those four worlds defined all of the points of overlap, and just run with that. And it's been really fun to flesh out stories that feel very classic, but in a setting that doesn't feel like you've seen it before. So I've really enjoyed building that out.
That's really cool. So before I get into D&D, which I'm going to, back to board games.
Oh, yeah.
Are there any modern board games that you would say are like a must play for a lot of people? Like you have to, like, you know, these are the classic new ones. You have to do this. You have to do that.
Yeah. Must play. So in any other world, if you ask me my favorite anything, movie, comics, music, I could never name a favorite.
Yeah.
I actually have a single favorite board game, which is very rare for me. The Discworld board game, the one that's played on a map of Ankh-Morpork, is to me the ultimate like city game because it's got asymmetric victory conditions. It's got very simple moves. It has a theming that's related to the Discworld books, but the way that they've written it is you don't have to understand the books to enjoy the game. It just means whenever certain cards get played, if you know the books, they're a little funny.
Yeah, it's just like an extra, like, oh.
But and that game, that's out of print now. I heard that the original,
that's too bad.
The game designer, because of the transition of the Pratchett estate, I guess at some point lost the rights to make a Discworld game, and so the game design exists. But the good news is, a couple of years ago, Phalanx Games, I think it's called, came out with Nanty Narking, and Nanty Narking is the same designer reskinning his own game, re-releasing it. So if you like the gameplay,
it's got the same gameplay.
Yeah, they've also added a little bit more story. Like there's a sort of a story to it. It's actually a really high-end production. You can get metal coins for it. It's really beautiful. And the Nanty Narking is sort of a Shakespearean Jack the Ripper setting. So it takes out the sort of wild fantasy of the Discworld, but gives you that same sort of rough and tumble, culture on the verge between the old world and the new world. So it's a great way to play the same game, even though it's really hard to find the original Discworld game. So I'd say that especially in terms of games that people don't all know about, if you don't either the Discworld game or Nanty Narking, it's the one that I would go out of the way to hunt down. And I regularly see people hunting down copies of the Discworld game for $100 to $400.
Oh, geez.
Pay it. But you don't have to. You can buy the new Phalanx Nanty Narking to get. So that's my one must play. I think there's other.
I think the most expensive game that I ever bought was Mice and Mystics, which is pretty fun, but it's very expensive.
Yeah, and this is just a game that's expensive because it's collectible.
Because it's collectible now, yeah.
But you can track down the new game. It's in print, and there's copies of it around. So that saves people. And it ends up being a $60, $80 game, not a $400 game.
I feel like we've gotten to experience sort of this board game revolution where they just exploded. And like, I definitely think the game pandemic had something to do with it, with co-oping, and some other certain ones I think were really instrumental in getting more people who weren't really into board games before being able to get into it. Because there are ones that we love that are nice and long and they're, have lots of story behind them. But I don't think the average person going into a board game, I don't think they want to sit for, the 3-hour rule book reading to everyone and trying to figure it out. I think most people want to be able to just jump in.
Yeah. Actually, a shout out to a game company that I've got some friends at, Resonim Games, which is a game publisher that actually came out of the Tilt Factor Lab, which is a game lab at Dartmouth College. So they're very New England, very small. They make a lot of very, manageable size game, half an hour to 45-minute game.
Oh, yeah, that's nice.
One of their games that I don't know why it doesn't get even more love is Monarch. It's a set building game. You play princesses.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
It's a nice short sort of 30 to 45-minute game. And in terms of having that classic feel, of sort of the fantasy medieval world of a board game, but being more accessible. You can get better at playing it, but you can play it pretty much right away. Big shout out to Monarch. And they've got a bunch of other sort of, I've noticed that they don't only do this, but they tend to focus on sort of digestible size games that are good for social play.
Yeah, I think, but yeah, so I think we definitely kind of saw a revolution of board games just sort of exploding. And it's really funny because then this whole pandemic happens and everyone's at home looking for things to do with their family or their friends that they're kind of stuck with during this
Yep.
whole period of time.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it's, I think, a really good time for board games in general, for them to come out and for people to start learning more about them. I think we mentioned PAX East is, and any other PAX, any board game or game convention where you can go and play games and learn about them is really
Yeah.
helpful for people, because then you have someone who's, kind of, maybe even an expert, maybe someone who wrote the rule book for the game might just show up and sit down next to you and help you figure out how to play, or someone who's been playing for years and years. It's just really helpful to have those people around and be able to, once we're able to
every year at
deal with
PAX,
people again.
I bought at least one game that I had never heard of before.
We did
I kind of
too.
made a point of buying them from the publisher,
Yep.
playing the demo, and sometimes I would like set us, okay, I'm going to buy this while I'm there. But most of my spending money was, what am I going to discover that's new? Because I'm going to get to go to their booth. That, like, the artist taught me how to play Vast.
That's awesome.
Not even the game designer,
The artists, well.
And those moments are really cool, I think. And I've discovered a lot of my favorite games. I guess that's the other, I'll throw in that other answer, actually, of the sort of modern explosion of board games. If you haven't played Vast, that is another one that is a must play. That's completely asymmetrical for those who don't know. So you play, the original game of Vast, you could be the knight, the thief, the dragon, the goblins, or the cave.
Huh.
And so every game, you're using the same mechanics collectively. Like, there are cave tiles that are getting laid down, and there's a knight piece that's getting moved around. But which one you play as, it's not like a slight variation of the victory condition of the same game. You are playing effectively different games. And so which players are in the game change which mechanics are in effect and whether they matter. And so it's infinitely replayable. If you've played the knight versus the cave, that is a completely different game from, playing the knight versus the cave with the thief and the dragon in the cave. Different pieces come out, different game mechanics are in effect.
I feel like we should almost just have a list come on the screen of all the different games that people should check out.
Yeah, those I'll put. I've given 3, which is a good round number. I'll save maybe I'll save 1 for 4 to get my branding right.
Here 4. Yeah, we at PAX we got to spend some time with the guy who made Sentinels. And that's a really fun, it's a card game where you get to, just telling the people where you get to play different superheroes and you're fighting a supervillain. And the fun part is that you're all working together with your cards and your character to fight a deck, which isn't actually another person. It's just you're trying to win against the game itself. Yeah, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, that's another game where which combos you play changes the game. Not quite as dramatically as with Vast, but which heroes are in the game, which villain, which location you're in. It feels like a fresh new game. So, similar idea there. It's a good one for.
I hope people are following some of these things we're saying. I'm like, oh gosh, all right, well, we'll see.
I'm trying to take a step back and describe why you'd want to play it, but yeah, Sentinels, the co-op mode. For those who don't know, too, it's a superhero. They basically built their own comic book superhero world. Yeah. And so you're playing these sort of characters who have connections to each other.
They're sort of cliche superheroes.
Yeah. Yeah. Like distilled.
Yeah. And they get pretty funny. What their powers are and their origin stories are on the cards and stuff. And they're very funny.
Yeah.
So moving on from board games and onto RPGs, what got you into D&D?
I was like 11, so it was.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I was like,
yeah, it was. Which I won't say how long ago that was, but
yeah.
I will. How about this? I won't date myself specifically, but I will say that I started playing 2nd edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, we did. We did too.
Yeah. And so at the time, it was like you see on Stranger Things. You're kids, and you get to be in the basement making up stories, but there's at least some rules so that it's not. Just someone saying, "No, I kill you."
Mm-hmm.
No, I run faster. There's a system for some of that.
That's a good point. It's basically like playing imagination games with your friends, but you can't have someone being like, "I'm invincible."
Right. Yeah, I think it's and you have a little bit of a rails in terms of the world, and then you mess it up, and we all played our super dark, overpowered character within our first couple of games, and then we all settled into I guess that's my first memory of it. In high school, I actually played a lot of different tabletop RPGs with friends, pen and paper RPGs. So the whole original World of Darkness, Vampire the Masquerade.
Yeah, we're actually playing a mage game right now.
Are you playing? There's like 3 generations of
yeah,
those.
we're doing a mage. It's like 2000. What is it? I don't know.
But we used to do it. The one thing you weren't supposed to do, it didn't really work, is we would just bring characters from all the different games.
Oh yeah, we tried to do that. We tried to do a LARP version with all the different characters, and werewolves were way overpowered. And
victory conditions, and if it's about combat, the werewolves are overpowered, and if it's about social, the vampires doesn't work. But it was still fun. We were making it up as we went. We were teenagers.
Yeah, we did the same thing. We went to a park. We all dressed up in silly costumes, and
See, I went from tabletop straight to LARPing, so we didn't LARP the tabletop games. I got dragged to like a Boy Scout camp.
We did that too. Yeah, I started. Well, actually, I think I started LARP. Well, I started LARPing when I was 12, and my dad lied and said I was older.
Oh. I play in a LARP that's been going since the mid to late 80s, and so I know people who were babies who were brought into the game, who are now adults who play the game.
It's so weird, but it's awesome. It's so cool.
Yeah. I remember when I started in 1997. So the game had been running for about a decade. And so there were people who'd played for like 7 to 10 years, were considered, these old,
Yeah.
Well, I don't really play that game anymore, but I was playing for about 20 years.
Yeah, it's amazing.
The guy who'd been there for 7 years, I was like, he's been playing forever. He's so old. His character's like part of history. And then now I've,
Yeah.
But I think what got me into role playing was, I was an indoor kid. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I read a lot of sci-fi books and fantasy books, and to go from reading it to being able to immerse yourself in it, just with your words, even before LARPing, to immerse yourself in telling a story with people, collaborating with people. You got to be the hero. You got to play out, sort of fantasies. There was an element of escapism, but the biggest thing for me was you can't play D&D alone.
Yeah.
It is inherently social. You cannot be alone playing that game, and that's so cool to me, and it always was. People would say it was like, "Oh, you're in the basement. You're not getting out. You're not doing things." Like, yeah, but there's 6 of us here. That's pretty good.
Well, you're doing something interesting. You are streaming a sort of a D&D game, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're streaming a D&D game on Twitch. So you kind of are alone.
Sort of, yeah.
But you're with everybody on who's playing on Twitch with you.
Yeah,
Can you tell us a little bit about what it is and what you do, and what kind
I was a little late to online tabletop RPG play. I wanted to be. There needed to be nachos. If there weren't nachos or pizza, it wasn't D&D. But with the pandemic, really got me to think I got to try this. And so actually, one of the things that happened was I was living in LA before the pandemic, and I had 2 people I had known before within 100 miles of me. They'd played LARP with me. They moved from New England. My buddy Joe works at Blizzard, and so he was out there.
Oh, that's cool.
I got there, and they invited me to a D&D game. And as soon as the pandemic, happened, we switched to playing online. And I was like, oh, this isn't so bad. So after a few sessions of that, I realized I had never DM'd a modern D&D game. Like I was often the designated DM as a teenager, but I got away without it for a while as an adult. Yeah. And I wanted something to do. And I have this problem where, how do I say this? Sometimes I don't do the fun things in life because I'm worried I'm not being productive enough.
Yeah, so I get what you're saying.
Into playing D&D by saying it was going to be for work. Mm-hmm. I'll host a D&D game, and it'll be part of marketing for the 4th place, and it'll help me develop the world for the setting that I've already been writing. And so I found some cool friends online who, one of the goals was we hadn't all played together before. It was a diverse group of people in terms of gaming backgrounds and otherwise. And just let them come up with their characters and said, listen, I've got this big world in my head. You give me a few things about your characters, and we'll find a spot in the world and start playing. And so we've got, it's a 5th edition D&D game. It uses my, sometimes the homebrew sort of early versions of the stuff that I'm writing and developing for the 4th place. But you've got characters there's one character in there who is the Wizard of Legend, which is volume 1 of my books. And then I've got 2 characters who are twins who are playing demigods, which is volume 2. And we're in a setting that's all about sort of the founding of civilization, kind of meant to be a very early kind of classical era before the rise of humanity is part of one of the.
And you're talking about your comic books, or
No, this is this is the actual play game. This is Heroes of Four Worlds.
Okay, yeah, but the characters are from your comic, are in your comics too, or they're in.
Sorry. No, they're from.
Sorry, I get confused. You do too many things.
Yeah. They're from the D&D supplements that I write.
Okay, so right now he's talking about he writes D&D supplement books that people can buy, and they can use the ideas in the story for their own D&D games at home.
Right. Yeah. So the books I write for D&D books, they're they're mostly about character options, the first two. So it's adding races and classes and backgrounds and the things that you use to build your character. Now that I've started getting onto the fairy stuff that we talked about earlier, it's much more getting into world building and setting. And suddenly I'm realizing there's a lot more of this that I can share with people. But so the players in the game use some of those character options, and they're in the world that's being developed in those books. And they touch on characters who, Lost Tom, I guess is he's an NPC in that. He's the wizard who's a little bit, how do I say, he's there. Sometimes he's a source of direction, but he's not always very clear on what's actually going on because he's a little lost. When
I run games, it is nice to have source material that I can look at. Sometimes I'll find characters and you can use pieces of it that you think will work for your game. And if you're starting to develop some settings with your fairy lore, is that what you were saying? So that is also really helpful too. If you're starting out or if you've been doing it for a long time, either way, it's nice to have something that you can look at and have on hand, especially if your characters walk into a situation that you weren't expecting them to do. You're running a game for people and suddenly they're like, well, we want to go to this place that you didn't develop. And you're like, oh, well, I have this book right here.
Right. And for me, I like world building. When I was writing comics, I was building, the high concept in the world of each book was a unique book, and then I'd find excuses to connect them because I can't help myself. But I find that running the game helps me come up with things to write down, and writing stuff down helps me flesh out stuff before it shows up in the game. And the goal for any DM, you use my books, you use the default settings. You're going to want to have some things to refer to make it easier, and you're going to want to do your own thing with it. And I think that's really important, is giving people guidelines, but nothing too rigid, nothing that says you can't do this.
So how do people find your Twitch stream if they want to watch?
So they can find Heroes of Four Worlds on twitch.tv/thefourthplaceian. My shortcut URL is fourth.me/Twitch. So that's just a 4th.me/Twitch, gets you to that same channel. There's also, you can find Heroes of Four Worlds on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. They're at Heroes4 on any of those things. It's a nice short again. And we play on Saturday nights, not every Saturday night. Right now we're on a little bit of a break, but normally it's every other Saturday. But you can also find all of our back episodes. So we're 8 episodes in, plus a 2-shot. So there's hours and hours of D&D story to catch up on if you're looking for stuff.
Something to watch.
That's all I do right now. I don't listen to my own podcast.
We do a lot of that too. If someone has never played before, would they still be able to watch and sort of figure out what's going on and maybe learn how to play?
I think it's fairly accessible. I do know that people who've never played a tabletop game before have trouble digesting actual play shows. So I won't say it's perfect for someone with no experience, but we intentionally started the game with a player who'd never played D&D before. We're very intentionally trying to make it a game that is a place to learn D&D, including for us. So we have people who are very experienced with other games, maybe with LARPing, but not with D&D. And we try to create an environment where there's no shame in asking questions. There's no hesitation in asking and learning the rules. And that goes for me. We on the Brewski Jubilee, there's like 3 or 4 moments where someone says, I think it's like this. I think it's like this. And instead of arguing about the rules, we have an open, the idea is that there's no shame in not knowing. A lot of these games that we play, hobby games, they have more rules than you would ever have in your head at once. And that's okay, as long as you understand that and play them with that attitude.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what the GM is also for. The person running, the game master who's running the game, they can make the ultimate decision, and maybe it doesn't go along exactly with the book, but they can say, well, that's okay for now. This is what we need to do just to keep going.
Yeah, my stance is, if I know the right rule as a GM, I love to do the right thing, but someone has to decide. But I think creating an environment where it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay not to know, is really important. And that part, we put that in because I think that watching streams like this is how people get into these games.
Yeah.
If it's accessible, if it doesn't expect you to know everything, it's a chance to try out playing without.
And I think now is sort of the perfect time to get into these kind of games.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we
time to play.
Yeah, I've never been really interested in only making things for the people who already know what they're doing, because I'm trying to gather communities together and bring people in. And I think, so much of geek culture, and I was guilty of it probably early on in my years of LARPing, but if someone doesn't know what they're doing, you don't want to include them. And that's the opposite of what should be happening.
Yeah.
Right. The people who don't know are the people who can learn, and the people who are going to be there tomorrow, and you can bring them in and have a bigger community.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's sort of happening more and more now too, as these games get more and more popular. People are starting to realize that it should be more inclusive, and ways to figure out how to make it more inclusive for people that are just getting into it.
Yeah, I was there for the bad old days.
Me too.
Go into a game shop and, if you weren't...
nobody talks to you. They don't look at you.
Nobody talks to you. And if you're not a white guy, straight
male,
white guy, then you feel like you don't belong there. And, I think we have to do something to fight that. Otherwise, I don't want to only hang out with people who look like me. I won't learn anything. I won't learn anything new. It's not a lot of fun.
These games are not, D&D, board games, any tabletops, video games. They're not just for, white males. They're for pretty much anyone, and anyone that wants to, use their imagination and experience something fun.
Yeah, and it's all about, how do you make sure that someone doesn't get the wrong impression that they're not welcome, first step, and you lose that person.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing in the world, is not to get to play with all the people who might be fun to play with.
Kind of the exact opposite of what you've been trying to build here. You're like, I want a place for everyone to be able to go and play games.
100%. Yeah. And it's great, and you have to work at that stuff. You can't just say we won't kick people out or we won't make them feel unwelcome. You have to think about, how do you make it so that the experience doesn't give someone that impression, even if it's wrong? How do you counteract? It's just, I won't get into politics too much, but you have to not only not do the bad thing, you have to actively work against the bad thing in order to build the good thing.
I actually know someone that she was brought to a LARP. Her boyfriend brought her to a LARP, and the first night she was there, nobody knew where she went. She disappeared, and apparently she was crying all night.
Overwhelming.
Because she didn't know what to do. She was confused. She'd never done anything, any fantasy, any role playing, any of it. Like, she'd never done any of it. And it was just so much for her. The next day she woke up and everybody, was super friendly to her. They were, showing her how to do things and having fun. She had so much fun. She was like the most dedicated player in that game. She played for her character for like 10 years. She loved it more than anything else. She got really into it, but it was just so funny that it went from her just crying all night to absolutely like loving every minute of the game.
What that shows me too is I know a lot of people who are on that razor's edge where they got through. They had that bad night and then it clicked and people opened up to them or something happened.
Yeah.
And I try to remember that for everybody who I know who got through, I bet there's 5 people who I never knew because they didn't.
Yeah.
No
one talked to them. No one was nice to them. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to try to be, some of us are like, I'm more of an ambivert now, but when I was 18 and started LARPing, I was super outgoing. I just showed up and just played the hell out of it and just put myself forward. But if only those people can have fun, then you end up with a community filled with only those people. I don't, even as someone who was that way, I don't want to only be surrounded by people who are as gregarious and outgoing as I was.
I was not that way. I was very shy.
And so you got to work to welcome people. You got to ask them what they're up to. You got to sort of give them little hooks and give them ways to realize, you don't necessarily want to break the game for them by stopping play and only telling them how to play the game. You have to figure out, how do I welcome this person into this community in a LARP?
Exactly.
Tell me, where are you from? Tell me quick, give me your backstory so that you have a chance to share it, right? You find ways to bring people in. And I think with other geek communities, it's versions of the same thing. You have to listen more than you talk. You have to ask people about what they're into. You have to, involve them in things. And it's board games. It's really easy to involve someone. You ask them to join the next round.
Yeah,
it's that simple.
Exactly. So I think we are coming to an end here, which means that I have to put you up to do our our tongue twister challenge that I make everybody do. I write new ones for every single month theme. Cool. This one has sort of a D&D theme to it. Okay. So I would like you to say the tongue twister as quickly as you can, and after getting through it, then I would really appreciate it if you could tell everyone all about your store and your websites and where we can find all the stuff, different things that you might have for sale right now, that kind of thing. But okay. Tongue twister first.
Well, yes, of course. Let's see. Thrummage through Drizzt Do'Urden's daggers while delving down into the dark dwarven dungeon of dangerous dark mantles.
Oh my gosh, that was really good. I'm not even gonna make you do it again. Like, that was so good.
No, I won't get it twice. I knew that I was either gonna not get through it or I was gonna use pure momentum to go.
I can't even say Drizzt Do'Urden most of the time. I'm like,
Yep. Again, if I think about it, I can't.
Well, that was awesome. So tell us what you have going on, what your websites, what things you might have for sale right now that we could learn about.
Again, I'm Ian from The Fourth Place. The Fourth Place can be found at thefourthplaceforgeeks.com or fourth.me. That's just a number 4th.me. And we're one of the only places in the world called The Fourth Place, luckily. So you can find us on all your social medias. The main thing that I really like to sell people on is be part of the community. Join for $5 a month, and you get all of the RPG books. You get access to the Discord. You can play games with me on Sundays and otherwise. And you get all kinds of behind the scenes stuff. And I mentioned I wrote some comics. You get all those too. You get all kinds of stuff. $5 a month. The most popular thing that people do is they join the sticker club. Sticker club is $15 a month. You get a new original set of stickers from The Fourth Place. Mostly lately RPG themed, but there's RPG stuff, geek culture themes. You get new original exclusive stickers in the mail every month. It's like a little care package. I usually can't help myself and I throw in some extra stuff. So those are definitely the number one and number two things. The other big thing, I did a Kickstarter that just was delivered 2 months early called Green Plus Great More. We didn't talk about these much. This could be their own interview. These are what I call RPG calibration and check-in cards. So they take concepts from role-playing check-ins. Basically, the idea is some people just play their RPGs, and some people have systems to say, how do I tell you when I'm uncomfortable, or how do I get you to back off, or how do I ask for more of something? This is a set of 6 jumbo oversized cards that use color, image, gesture, and words to signal the same things, because I don't think it's just about having a tool. I think it's about practicing, being able to say when something is iffy, say when something is not okay, say when something is awesome and you want more of it, in a way that you practice being able to do that more and being able to hear that more from the people at the table. So you can get Green Plus Great More right now by being a member. In January, it's a member exclusive. So you join our Patreon and you get a link to buy sets of the cards. But starting in February, they'll be available on our shop. You can get there shortcut-wise, thefourthplaceforgeeks.com/G+GM. Or fourth.me/G+GM. You can go there now to pre-order as well if you're not a member. So those are the big things we're doing right now. But I never stop doing new stuff because I just want to get things out there that help bring people together, give me something to do, and hopefully, get enough people involved in this community that we have critical mass to hang out together.
Great. And I look forward to you hopefully opening some sort of a shop someday that I can go hang out at and play a bunch of games.
I'd love to do it in New England because I know a lot of people there. So there's a non-zero chance. Plus, there's a lot of college towns, and that's about the right kind of place to open up something like that.
Well, thank you so much for coming last minute and talking to me and telling us all about this cool stuff. I'm actually really glad that I got to talk to you because we have your items are going to be featured all week long, and it's nice to hear some background about what they're for, and maybe people can learn more about it and watch some of your different things that you have going on, some of your Twitch streams and things like that. Well, thank you so much
for the opportunity. Everyone, you have to give me a pass if I was rambling a little because I wasn't prepared. I get the one shot this time. If we talk again, I guess I'll have to be more articulate.
I think we're great. All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Thank you all.